Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping through the grand, vermilion gates of the Forbidden City and into a world of unimaginable power, bizarre rituals, and often startling eccentricities. We're going to spend some time with ancient Chinese emperors, the, those sons of heaven who ruled vast empires, often with a cosmic mandate and a truly quirky approach to daily life. Imagine, for a moment, the heavy embroidered silk robes brushing against your skin, the oppressive silence of 1,000 watchful eunuchs, and the faint, sweet scent of incense lingering in the vast halls. You're at the very pinnacle of earthly power. But trust me, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you right now. And hey, if you're enjoying the historical vibes, like and follow the channel to keep waiting for the next exciting parts. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just been granted the mandate of heaven, a divine right to rule that makes you the most powerful person in the known world. Congratulations, your imperial majesty. But don't get too comfortable on that dragon-adorned throne. This isn't just about issuing decrees and watching peasants toil. Being an ancient Chinese emperor was a job, a lifestyle, and sometimes a bizarre performance unlike any other. You wake up in a bed fit for a deity, perhaps a vast, ornate platform covered in silks and furs, surrounded by watchful attendants. The dawn light, if it even reaches your inner chambers, filtered through intricate screens and heavy brocades, feels different here. Heavier, imbued with the weight of an entire civilization resting on your shoulders. The sheer scale of your living quarters is bewildering. You reside within the Forbidden City, a sprawling complex designed to house not just you and your immediate family, but thousands of concubines, eunuchs, ministers, and servants. It's a city within a city, with its own intricate rules, hidden passages and secret gardens. Every pathway, every courtyard, every hall is meticulously designed to reinforce your supreme status. You can't just pop down to the corner market for a snack. Every need, every whim, is attended to by a legion of subordinates. This isn't freedom, it's a gilded cage, albeit one with excellent catering and a personal army. Mainstream historical fact dictates that Chinese emperors were seen as the link between heaven and earth, holding immense spiritual and political authority. Their actions were believed to influence the very cosmos, from harvests to natural disasters. This belief, while granting immense power, also placed an almost unbearable burden of responsibility on their shoulders. You were literally responsible for the harmony of the universe. No pressure, right? A quirky tidbit is that some emperors, particularly those later in their reigns, became so secluded within the Forbidden City that they rarely saw anyone outside their inner circle of eunuchs and concubines. Some even developed intense social anxieties, making public appearances or even meeting high-ranking officials a terrifying ordeal. Imagine ruling millions without actually interacting with them, or barely anyone, in person. Historians still argue whether the extreme isolation of some emperors led to their increasing detachment from reality and poor governance, or if it was a calculated strategy by ambitious eunuchs and court factions to manipulate imperial power. Whatever the truth, you already feel the immense, almost suffocating, weight of the dragon throne. The first rays of dawn, or perhaps more accurately, the first whispers of your attendants, rouse you from your imperial slumber. No alarm clocks here, obviously. Your day as the son of heaven begins not with a leisurely stretch, but with a series of morning imperial rituals that are elaborate, often peculiar, and meticulously choreographed, designed to reinforce your cosmic status from the moment your feet touch the silk carpet. Imagine the scene. You're barely awake, but already a dozen eunuchs and palace women are attending to your every need. One holds a basin for you to wash your face with perfumed water, another offers warm tea, while yet another meticulously selects your robes for the day from a vast wardrobe. Every movement is a silent ballet, performed with reverence and absolute precision. You don't choose your clothes. They are selected based on the season, the occasion, and complex astrological considerations. You're a living symbol, and every aspect of your appearance must reflect cosmic harmony. One simply cannot displease heaven with a wrinkled sleeve. Can one, a particularly fastidious attendant, might fuss. After your personal toilette, often comes the morning audience. Well, this isn't a relaxed breakfast meeting. You are seated on your throne, often in a vast, echoing hall, bathed in the soft light filtering through high windows. Ministers and officials, sometimes hundreds of them, prostrate themselves before you, their heads touching the ground. You listen to reports, issue decrees, and sign documents, all while maintaining an impassive, almost divine demeanor. You are the ultimate authority, and even your yawns must be stifled with imperial grace. This public display of power is crucial, a daily reaffirmation of the mandate of heaven you hold. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the emperor's daily routine was rigidly structured, filled with ceremonies, audiences, and rituals designed to emphasize his unique position as the intermediary between heaven and earth. This wasn't just pomp, it was believed to be essential for maintaining cosmic order and the prosperity of the empire. A quirky tidbit is that some emperors, particularly those who disliked early mornings, would sometimes send a trusted eunuch to stand in for them during the earliest parts of the morning audience, relaying the emperor's decisions while his majesty might still be in bed or finishing his tea. Of course, this was a carefully guarded secret, as any hint of the emperor not fulfilling his duties could be seen as an ominous sign. Historians still argue whether the rigidity of these morning rituals genuinely instilled discipline in the emperors, or if they ultimately became a tedious burden that encouraged imperial detachment and reliance on palace staff. Whatever the case, as you endure another elaborate bow from a kneeling minister, you realize that being an emperor isn't just about power, it's about endless, intricate performance, starting from the moment you open your eyes. Once the elaborate morning rituals are complete, you find yourself immersed in the heart of your vast empire, the palace of endless secrets. This isn't just a building, it's a labyrinthine microcosm of power, intrigue, and rigid hierarchy, a self-contained world designed to both glorify and imprison you. Imagine stepping through one of the countless moon gates, perhaps entering a secluded courtyard where ancient trees cast dappled shadows on polished stone. Every corner, every corridor, every hidden pavilion in the Forbidden City hums with unspoken rules and simmering power struggles. You are the ultimate authority, yes, but you are also surrounded by thousands of people eunuchs, concubines, officials, guards, servants, each with their own ambitions, loyalties, and secrets. Navigating this human maze requires a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of political acumen. You can't trust everyone. In fact, trusting too freely could be your undoing. The emperor's ears are long, dear, but eunuch's whispers are longer. A jaded courtier might warn. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the Forbidden City, built primarily during the Ming and Qing dynasties, was the largest palace complex in the world, housing not just the emperor, but an entire parallel society. Its design reflected cosmic order and imperial majesty, but also functioned as a highly controlled environment to protect and isolate the Son of Heaven. Within these vast walls, information is power, and secrets are currency. A whispered rumor from a eunuch, a veiled complaint from a concubine, a subtle shift in a minister's demeanor all could carry immense weight, potentially leading to purges, demotions, or even executions. You learn to read between the lines, to interpret the unspoken, to understand the intricate dance of fealty and ambition that plays out daily around you. It's like playing a perpetual game of 3D chess, where the pieces are living, breathing, scheming human beings. You might wish for a simple spreadsheet to track loyalties, but alas, bureaucracy in ancient China was far more organic. A quirky tidbit is that the Forbidden City contained thousands of rooms, so many that it was said no one person, not even the emperor, could ever visit them all in their lifetime. Some emperors had favorite hidden retreats or private studies that few others knew about, offering a tiny sliver of true solitude. Historians still argue whether the physical vastness and complexity of the Forbidden City were primarily designed as a defensive measure against external threats, or if they served more effectively as a means of imperial control and isolation, limiting the emperor's direct contact with the outside world and centralizing power among his immediate retinue. Whatever its intended purpose, you feel the profound silence and the heavy weight of hidden histories within these endless walls. A palace built for a god, but inhabited by a very human, and often very vulnerable, emperor. Stepping from the general grandeur and intrigue of the Forbidden City, you are inexorably drawn into one of its most intricate and often perilous inner worlds, the harem's intricate politics. This wasn't merely a place for imperial pleasure. It was a highly structured, fiercely competitive environment populated by hundreds, sometimes thousands, of imperial concubines, each vying for your attention, affection, and most importantly, for the chance to bear you an heir. And you, the emperor, are caught at the very center of this swirling vortex of ambition. Imagine walking through the quiet courtyards of the inner court, the air fragrant with exotic flowers and expensive perfumes. You pass by exquisite pavilions, each housing a concubine of varying rank, from the empress, your primary wife, chosen for her lineage and often political alliances, down through various grades of consorts, ladies, and lesser concubines. Each woman knows her place, yet each also knows that her future, and the future of her family, rests entirely on her ability to capture your favor and produce a male heir. The dragon has many pearls, your majesty, but only one can be the brightest. A court lady might subtly flatter. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the imperial harem was a crucial institution in ancient China, vital for ensuring the continuation of the imperial line. It was strictly hierarchical, with concubines receiving different allowances, privileges, and degrees of access to the emperor based on their rank. The competition among these women could be brutal, though often conducted through subtle maneuvers and veiled threats rather than open conflict. A whispered slander about a rival, a strategically timed illness to gain your sympathy. The clever manipulation of eunuchs for access. These were the weapons of choice. Poison, black magic, and even infanticide were not unknown, though often highly secretive and rarely proven. You had to be constantly vigilant, assessing the true intentions behind every graceful bow and every seemingly innocent gift. It's like managing a highly talented, extremely well-dressed, and perpetually stressed corporate board, where the stakes are literally life and death. You'd almost prefer a good old-fashioned battle, wouldn't you? Your eunuchs, who have unlimited access to the inner court, become vital intermediaries, their loyalty fiercely sought by the concubines, often with lavish bribes. They are your eyes and ears, but also potential manipulators, holding immense power over who gets to see you and what information reaches your ears. A quirky tidbit is that some emperors, overwhelmed by the sheer number of concubines and the pressure to produce heirs, would sometimes rely on eunuchs to select a woman for their bed each night, using a system of plaques or tiles. This removed the burden of choice, but often created even more opportunities for manipulation. Historians still argue whether the elaborate structure of the harem was primarily designed to ensure a male heir and political stability, or if it inadvertently became a breeding ground for intrigue and instability due to the intense competition for imperial favor. Whatever its true function, you feel the invisible currents of ambition and desperation that swirl around you in the inner court. Every smile, every glance, every gesture from a concubine carries a hidden meaning, a silent plea for favor, or a veiled threat to a rival. Your heart might be open, but your eyes must remain eternally watchful. From the perilous, perfumed world of the harem, let's turn to an aspect of your imperial life that is both magnificent and, at times, utterly stifling. The imperial wardrobe's wonders. You see, as the son of heaven, your clothes weren't merely garments. They were complex statements of power, symbolism, and a daily burden of meticulous adherence to tradition. Imagine stepping into your imperial dressing chambers, a vast room filled with racks upon racks of exquisite robes. These aren't your comfortable loungewear. Oh no, each robe is a masterpiece of silk, often embroidered with intricate patterns of dragons, phoenixes, and auspicious clouds in shimmering gold and silver thread. The colors are strictly regulated, with bright yellow or imperial gold reserved almost exclusively for your use, a visual proclamation of your unique status. You are, quite literally, draped in divine authority. One simply cannot wear the wrong shade of vermilion on an ancestral day. Your Majesty, it would displease the spirits a meticulous wardrobe official might fret. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the emperor's wardrobe was highly symbolic, with specific colors, motifs like the five-clawed dragon, and designs dictated by strict imperial sumptuary laws. These garments weren't just fashion, they were part of the imperial iconography, reinforcing the emperor's divine and earthly power. The sheer weight and bulk of some of these robes can be surprising. Made from multiple layers of heavy silk and dense embroidery, they could be incredibly warm, even oppressive, in summer. Movement might be restricted, forcing you into a stately, almost gliding gait. Every step a deliberate act of imperial grace. There's no quick change into casual clothes. Every ensemble requires a team of eunuchs and attendants to help you don and doff, ensuring every fold is perfect, every tassel precisely placed. It's a performance from dawn till dusk, and your costume is always on point. A quirky tidbit is that during some dynasties, specific robes were designated for different times of day, different rituals, or even different moods. There might be a morning audience robe, a garden stroll robe, and a decree signing robe. This level of sartorial specificity meant your wardrobe was less about personal preference and more about fulfilling a prescribed role. Historians still argue whether the elaborate imperial wardrobe served primarily to project an image of power and wealth, or if it also acted as a psychological tool of control, subtly reinforcing the emperor's sacred, almost superhuman, status by separating him entirely from the attire of ordinary mortals. Whatever its deeper purpose, as you stand there, encased in layers of silk and gold, you feel the tangible weight of empire, not just on your shoulders, but draped around every inch of your imperial being. From the oppressive grandeur of your robes, let's descend into a realm that, while perhaps more palatable to your senses, was no less filled with peculiar protocols, the culinary delights and dangers of an emperor's table. You see, being the son of heaven meant a menu of unparalleled variety and extravagance, but also one riddled with superstitions, peculiar precautions, and even outright paranoia. Imagine your dining hall, a vast space where hundreds of dishes might be prepared daily. Even if you only sampled a handful, your meals were not simple affairs. They were elaborate feasts, even when eaten alone. Imperial kitchens employed thousands of chefs, each specializing in different regional cuisines, from the delicate flavors of the South to the robust dishes of the North. You could, theoretically, have anything your heart desired, from rare delicacies like bear paw or camel hump to meticulously prepared noodle dishes and steamed buns. A dragon must dine like a dragon, Your Majesty. A sycophantic chef might beam. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese imperial cuisine was renowned for its vastness, variety, and the sheer number of personnel involved in its preparation. Emperors often had hundreds, if not thousands, of dishes available to them daily, showcasing the immense wealth and logistical capabilities of the imperial court. However, beneath this veneer of gastronomic paradise lay a constant undercurrent of fear. Poison. The history of imperial China is rife with tales of emperors being poisoned by ambitious concubines, scheming eunuchs, or jealous ministers. Consequently, Your meals underwent an elaborate series of precautions. Every dish would be tasted by a eunuch beforehand, a designated food taster whose unenviable job was to risk his life for your palate. You might watch him, impassively, as he sampled a dish, waiting a few moments for any adverse reaction before you dared to pick up your chopsticks. It's like having a permanent, very well-fed, but ultimately expendable, food critic. You'd probably miss the days when you could just grab a snack without a life-or-death preview. A quirky tidbit that illustrates this paranoia: some emperors kept pet monkeys or white mice, not just for amusement, but because it was believed these animals would react visibly to certain poisons, serving as early warning systems. Imagine sharing your dining hall with a furry little toxicology lab. Historians still argue whether the extreme precautions taken against poisoning were genuinely necessary due to a constant threat, or if they largely became an elaborate ritual driven by courtly intrigue and imperial paranoia, reflecting the immense stakes of the succession and power struggles. Whatever the truth, as you raise your chopsticks to a dish, you taste not just the flavors, but also the silent history of suspicion that permeates every imperial meal. From the tantalizing, yet terrifying, dishes of the imperial table, let's pivot to a group of individuals who, despite their outward appearance of subservience, wielded immense, often terrifying power within your palace: the court eunuch's power. You see, these castrated men, initially brought into the palace to serve in the inner chambers where other men were forbidden, often became indispensable, their influence growing to rival, and sometimes even overshadow, that of ministers and even emperors themselves. Imagine the sheer omnipresence of eunuchs within the Forbidden City. They are everywhere, attending to your personal needs, guarding the inner gates, managing the imperial household, overseeing concubines, and even administering parts of the bureaucracy. They are your closest confidants, your spies, your go-betweens, and often the only men allowed unrestricted access to the emperor's private life. This unique position gave them unparalleled access to information and, crucially, to you. The emperor's eyes see much, your majesty, but the eunuch's ears hear more. A whispering concubine might warn. Mainstream historical fact confirms that eunuchs played a significant and often controversial role in Chinese imperial history, particularly from the Han Dynasty onwards. While ostensibly servants, their proximity to the emperor and control over palace affairs often allowed them to accumulate vast power, wealth, and influence, sometimes leading to corrupt and tyrannical regimes. Their power stemmed from several factors. Firstly, their castration ostensibly made them safe in the harem, meaning they could move freely among the concubines without threatening imperial purity or the line of succession. This gave them immense control over the flow of information to and from the inner court. They could filter messages, manipulate access to you, and even forge imperial decrees. Secondly, as they had no families of their own theoretically, their loyalty was supposed to be solely to the emperor. In practice, this often translated into loyalty to their own faction or personal ambition. They formed powerful, self-serving cliques, often controlling vast networks of spies and informers throughout the palace and even the empire. A quirky tidbit is that some powerful eunuchs amassed immense personal wealth, building lavish estates outside the Forbidden City and becoming patrons of the arts. They might even adopt sons, other eunuchs, or loyal commoners to create their own power bases and ensure their legacy, defying the very reason for their castration. Historians still argue whether the reliance on eunuchs was a pragmatic solution to managing the vast imperial household without threatening the imperial line, or if it was a fundamental flaw in the Chinese imperial system that repeatedly led to corruption, intrigue, and the weakening of imperial authority. Whatever the debate, as you issue a decree or receive a report, you feel the subtle, pervasive presence of the eunuchs, a silent force that could either underpin your rule or subtly undermine it from within. Stepping away from the shadowy influence of the court eunuchs, let's open the gilded doors to a more serene, yet equally symbolic aspect of your imperial life: the gardens of earthly paradise. These weren't mere patches of green. They were vast, meticulously designed landscapes within and around the Forbidden City, serving as your private sanctuaries, stages for elaborate rituals, and profound expressions of imperial philosophy, brimming with hidden meanings and carefully crafted beauty. Imagine wandering through winding pathways, past cascading waterfalls and serene koi ponds. Every rock, every twisted pine, every delicate bridge is placed with deliberate intent, adhering to principles of feng shui and ancient Chinese aesthetics. You might pause by a perfectly gnarled tree, hundreds of years old, its branches reaching out like wise old arms. This isn't wild nature. It's nature perfected, controlled, and miniaturized for your imperial gaze. It's like owning the world's most exquisite living art gallery, but one you can stroll through. One contemplates the universe, your majesty, even in a single blossom, a philosophical minister might gently suggest. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese imperial gardens were highly sophisticated in symbolic spaces, designed to evoke idealized landscapes and philosophical concepts. They were not just for leisure, but also for meditation, scholarly pursuits, and sometimes for private imperial audiences and ceremonies. These gardens were your escape, a place to find a semblance of peace amidst the relentless pressures of court life. You might compose poetry here, receive a favored concubine for a private moment, or simply sit and meditate, attempting to connect with the cosmic harmony that your rule was meant to embody. The carefully cultivated tranquility was a stark contrast to the political machinations within the palace walls. But even these havens held hidden meanings. Every element, a strategically placed rock representing a mountain, a winding stream symbolizing a river, a pavilion overlooking a vast expanse, was designed to reflect the grandeur of your empire and your cosmic connection. They were a microcosm of the universe, with you, the emperor, as their central, divine axis. A quirky tidbit is that some emperors had miniature landscapes built within their gardens, replicating famous mountains or lakes, sometimes even constructing tiny pagodas or palaces within these microworlds. It was like having your own imperial theme park, but much more serene and contemplative. Historians still argue whether the creation of these elaborate gardens reflected a genuine imperial desire for natural beauty and philosophical contemplation, or if they were primarily another tool for projecting imperial wealth, power, and mastery over nature itself. Whatever their deepest purpose, as you stroll through these meticulously crafted landscapes, you feel a fleeting sense of peace, a connection to a world beyond the court, even if that world is entirely of your own, perfectly sculpted in design. The scent of pine and damp earth, the gentle murmur of a hidden stream, all work to momentarily alleviate the burden of the mandate of heaven. From the philosophical serenity of your imperial gardens, let's turn to a more whimsical, yet equally telling, aspect of your life as emperor. Imperial pets and follies. You see, amidst the gravitas of state affairs and the intricate court politics, many emperors indulged in peculiar affections for animals, sometimes elevating them to positions of surprising importance, or at least providing a delightful diversion from the weight of the world. Imagine a grand courtyard, not filled with ministers, but with exotic creatures. Perhaps you encounter a meticulously cared for cricketala housed in an intricately carved ivory cage. Cricket fighting was a popular pastime among the elite, and emperors often possessed champion fighters, some valued more than a lesser concubine. You might spend hours observing their sparring, or simply listening to their chirping, a tiny symphony in the vast quietude of the palace. It's like having a miniature, highly specialized gladiatorial arena, but for insects, a good cricket fight, Your Majesty, is far less taxing than a court debate, a sly eunuch might observe. Mainstream historical fact confirms that keeping exotic pets and engaging in animal pastimes like cricket fighting or falconry was common among Chinese emperors, reflecting their personal interests as well as their immense wealth and ability to acquire rare creatures. Beyond insects, Emperors sometimes developed astonishingly deep affections for more conventional pets. You might have a beloved keraha, perhaps one with particularly beautiful markings, who is granted its own retinue of eunuchs to cater to its every whim, fed the finest imperial delicacies, and even given a formal title. Or perhaps a treasured parrot, taught to recite poems or auspicious phrases, serving as a charming, if repetitive, companion in your private chambers. These animals, seemingly insignificant, offered a rare outlet for genuine, uncomplicated affection in a world of constant formality and suspicion. A quirky tidbit is the historical account of Emperor Jiajing of the Ming Dynasty, who was famously obsessed with cats, even appointing a dragon cat general and mourning profoundly when his favorite cat passed away, bestowing upon it a posthumous imperial title and a lavish burial. Imagine the palace bureaucracy having to deal with a feline funeral. Historians still argue whether the emperor's indulgence in these follies of pet keeping was a sign of their detachment from practical governance, or if it was a necessary psychological escape valve, allowing them a measure of emotional release in an otherwise isolated and demanding life. Whatever the deeper meaning, as you scratch a favored cat behind the ears or watch your prized cricket preen, you find a small, genuine moment of joy and companionship, a welcome reprieve from the relentless pressures of your divine office. From the charming, if sometimes obsessive, world of imperial pets, we now veer into a realm that consumed many emperors with a singular, often dangerous, passion, seeking immortality's folly. You see, despite holding the mandate of heaven and ruling over all earthly domains, emperors were still agonizingly mortal. This stark reality often drove them to desperate, bizarre, and ultimately futile quests for eternal life, frequently with fatal consequences. Imagine an emperor, perhaps in his later years haunted by the specter of death. He has everything a mortal could desire: power, wealth, pleasure, but time is his ultimate enemy. This fear often led them to embrace, Taoist alchemists and mystics who promised elixirs of life, secret concoctions that would grant eternal youth and boundless vitality. You might find yourself commissioning vast sums of gold and rare minerals for these immortality pills, consuming foul-smelling brews or strange powders, all in the desperate hope of cheating death. Just a few more drops, Your Majesty, and you shall transcend the mortal coil, a cunning alchemist might declare, rubbing his hands with glee. Mainstream historical fact confirms that many Chinese emperors, particularly from the Qin and Han dynasties onwards, were obsessed with extending their lives and achieving immortality. This often involved patronizing Taoist alchemists and consuming mercury-based elixirs, which, ironically, often led to mercury poisoning, worsening their health or even causing their deaths. The ingredients in these so-called elixirs were often incredibly toxic. Mercury, Tourney, cinnabar mercury sulfide, lead, and arsenic were common components, believed to possess powerful yang energy capable of preserving the body. Instead of granting immortality, these substances typically cause severe neurological damage, madness, skin lesions, and organ failure. You might experience strange dreams, sudden fits of rage, or inexplicable tremors, symptoms dismissed by your alchemists as signs of purification or spiritual transformation rather than slow poisoning. It's like a very literal, very dangerous, take on no pain, no gain. A quirky tidbit is the story of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China, who famously sought immortality. He consumed mercury pills and even had massive underground rivers of mercury built into his tomb complex, believing it would contribute to his eternal life. He died relatively young, a testament to the fatal folly of his quest. Historians still argue whether the emperor's obsession with immortality was a genuine spiritual belief rooted in Taoist philosophy, or if it was a desperate manifestation of their ultimate powerlessness against death, highlighting the psychological burden of their divine status. Whatever the underlying motivation, as you swallow another strange-tasting pill, You are participating in a dangerous, ancient gamble, driven by the ultimate human desire to never face the end. Stepping away from the perilous pursuit of immortality, let's now consider the immense, often crushing, weight you bore as the Son of Heaven. The mandate of heaven's burden. This wasn't merely a fancy title. It was a profound spiritual and political concept that underpinned your entire rule, making you responsible for the harmony of the entire cosmos and the well-being of every single person under heaven. Imagine waking each day with the knowledge that your actions, your very character, directly influence the natural world. A good harvest, a benevolent rain, floods, droughts, earthquakes, or even comets appearing in the sky. These could be interpreted as signs that you had lost the mandate, that heaven was displeased with your rule. The pressure was immense. Every decision, every ritual, every aspect of your imperial conduct was scrutinized not just by your ministers, but by the perceived judgment of the heavens themselves. You were literally holding the universe in your hands, trying not to drop it. The heavens speak, your majesty, and they whisper of your virtue or your failings. A particularly bold censor might declare, making your stomach clench. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the mandate of heaven, Tian Ming, was a core concept in Chinese political philosophy, used to legitimize the rule of emperors. It implied that heaven granted power to a just ruler, but would withdraw it from a tyrannical one, leading to natural disasters, rebellions, and dynastic change. This concept provided both immense authority and profound accountability. This burden extended beyond cosmic harmony to the very tangible welfare of your people. You were responsible for ensuring peace, prosperity, and justice for millions. Famines, rebellions, and invasions were not just political setbacks. They were direct indictments of your fitness to rule. You were constantly receiving memorials, petitions, and reports from across the vast empire, detailing local grievances, injustices, and natural calamities. Each one was a reminder of the immense scale of your responsibilities and the very real suffering that could occur if you failed. It's like being the CEO of a global corporation, but with added divine intervention and the constant threat of peasant uprisings. A quirky tidbit that demonstrates this burden: some emperors would perform elaborate rituals during natural disasters, publicly confessing their sins or deficiencies as ruler, hoping to appease heaven and restore cosmic balance. This public act of humility, while strategic, also showed the very real belief in their personal responsibility for natural phenomena. Historians still argue whether the mandate of heaven primarily served as a tool for dynastic legitimacy and control, or if it genuinely acted as a moral check on imperial power, forcing emperors to consider the welfare of their subjects lest they lose divine favor. Whatever its ultimate impact, as you sign another decree or ponder a minister's report, you feel the colossal weight of heaven on your shoulders, a silent, pervasive reminder that your rule is not just a political act, but a cosmic trust. Having grappled with the invisible burden of the mandate of heaven, let's now shift to its grand, visible manifestation, the grand imperial processions. These weren't mere parades. They were meticulously choreographed, awe-inspiring public displays of power, wealth, and the emperor's divine authority, designed to leave an indelible impression on both subjects and foreign envoys alike. Imagine standing on a raised viewing platform, or perhaps, more accurately, being the center of the spectacle. You are seated in an impossibly ornate imperial palanquin, a miniature and portable palace carried by dozens of liveried bearers. The palanquin itself is a masterpiece of craftsmanship: lacquered wood, shimmering silks, and intricate gold carvings of dragons and phoenixes. As you are carried through the wide avenues of your capital city, surrounded by thousands of guards, officials, musicians, and flag bearers, the ground trembles slightly with the rhythmic march of countless feet. The air is filled with the scent of incense, the clang of cymbals, the drone of trumpets, and the murmur of awe from the kneeling crowds. The Son of Heaven descends. Dear, Even if only for a brief promenade, a breathless observer might whisper. Mainstream historical fact confirms that imperial processions were a vital part of Chinese court life, serving to demonstrate the emperor's majesty, reinforce social hierarchy, and convey a sense of order and stability to the populace. These events were massive logistical undertakings, involving thousands of participants and intricate planning. The sheer scale of these processions was mind-boggling. You'd be preceded by thousands of imperial guards in glittering armor, followed by banners, flags, and ceremonial parasols, each signifying an imperial virtue or a conquered territory. Musicians played stately tunes, scholars carried symbolic tablets, and officials of every rank marched in precise formation, their silks and robes a dazzling river of color. The entire city, or at least its main thoroughfares, would be shut down for hours, transformed into your personal, ceremonial stage. It's like the biggest, most elaborate, and longest-running public relations campaign in history. You might secretly wish for a quick golf cart, but that would rather ruin the cosmic impact, wouldn't it? A quirky tidbit is that specific types of imperial palanquins or carriages were designated for different occasions. Some open air for public viewing, others completely enclosed for privacy or during times of ill health. The design and number of bearers were also strictly regulated by imperial sumptuary laws, a subtle way to show rank even among the emperor's conveyances. Historians still argue whether the immense resources poured into these grand processions genuinely instilled loyalty and submission in the populace, or if they largely served as a spectacle to impress foreign dignitaries and reinforce the emperor's power within the court itself. Whatever their precise impact, as you are carried forward, feeling the sway of the palanquin and hearing the roar of the crowds, you are the living embodiment of imperial power, a moving symbol of heaven's mandate on earth. Having been paraded as a living symbol of celestial power, let's now retreat to a more personal, yet equally revealing aspect of your imperial life, your art and collecting obsessions. You see, beneath the layers of ritual and governance, many emperors harbored deeply eccentric tastes and pursued vast, often astonishing collections of treasures, revealing their individual personalities and, occasionally, their profound quirks. Imagine strolling through a private wing of your palace, not a ceremonial hall, but a series of chambers overflowing with accumulated wonders. You might pause before a delicate jade mountain carving, meticulously detailed, or a rare scroll painting by a long-dead master, its brushstrokes whispering across centuries. Your collection isn't just about wealth, it's about connoisseurship, about a desire to possess the most beautiful, the most unique, or the most historically significant objects in the world. You have eunuchs specifically dedicated to cataloging, preserving, and even acquiring new pieces for your imperial hoard. Only the finest for the Son of Heaven, your Majesty, even if it means emptying the treasury a little, a devoted curator might humbly suggest. Mainstream historical fact confirms that many Chinese emperors were avid art collectors and patrons, amassing immense collections of paintings, calligraphy, ceramics, bronzes, and other artifacts. These imperial collections often form the bedrock of what are now some of the world's most important museums. Your obsessions might be diverse. One emperor might be consumed by ancient bronzes, another by rare porcelain, a third by unusual scholarly rocks that resemble miniature mountains. Some developed an almost fanatical devotion to a particular style or artist, driving up prices and sometimes even forcing artists to abandon their own styles to conform to imperial taste. It's like having unlimited funds and absolutely no restraint when it comes to your hobbies. You could, for instance, decide that you must have every single piece of blue and white porcelain ever created, and armies of officials would be dispatched to make it so. A quirky tidbit that highlights this eccentricity: Emperor Qianlong of the Qing dynasty was famously prolific, not just as a collector, but also as a commentator. He would often inscribe his own poems or seal marks directly onto priceless works of art, sometimes defacing them in the process, simply because he was the emperor and could do as he pleased. Imagine a modern art collector taking a permanent marker to a Rembrandt. Historians still argue whether the emperor's collecting habits were primarily a genuine expression of artistic appreciation, or if they served as another means of consolidating and displaying imperial wealth and power, asserting dominance over culture itself. Whatever the motivation, as you run your fingers over a piece of ancient silk embroidery or gaze into the depths of a perfectly glazed vase, you connect with a different kind of power, one that transcends the political and delves into the timeless beauty of human creation. From the refined chambers of your imperial art collections, let's transition to a different, equally rigorous aspect of imperial life, the son of heaven's studies. You see, being born to the dragon throne wasn't just about inheriting power, it was about undergoing an incredibly intense and demanding education designed to mold you into a wise, virtuous, and capable ruler, steeped in the classics and prepared for the immense responsibilities ahead. Imagine yourself as a young prince, perhaps barely 5 or 6 years old, already facing a curriculum that would make modern university students weep. Your day would begin before dawn, long before most adults were awake, with lessons in classical Chinese, history, philosophy, and calligraphy. Your tutors, often the most brilliant scholars in the empire, would be unforgiving. Every character had to be perfectly formed, every classical text memorized and understood, every historical precedent analyzed. There was no easy mode for the imperial heir. The stakes were simply too high. A dragon must know the wisdom of ages. Your imperial highness, for a wise emperor, ensures a long dynasty. Your stern tutor might remind you with a tap of his bamboo stick. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the education of imperial princes, especially the designated heir, was incredibly rigorous and comprehensive. It emphasized Confucian classics, history, poetry, and practical governance, preparing them for the immense intellectual and administrative demands of ruling a vast empire. Your studies weren't just academic. You would also learn about statecraft, military strategy, legal codes, and the intricate rituals of court life. You might practice archery or horsemanship, disciplines deemed essential for a balanced ruler. The pressure to excel was immense. Failure could mean not only humiliation, but potentially being passed over for the succession. It was a constant performance, a never-ending examination, all leading to the ultimate job interview, ruling millions. You might dream of simpler times, perhaps chasing butterflies in the imperial gardens, but duty called, and duty meant more ancient texts. A quirky tidbit that reveals the strictness imperial tutors were sometimes allowed to physically punish princes who were lazy or rebellious. A stark contrast to how virtually everyone else treated the imperial family. Imagine getting a rap on the knuckles from the same man who bows to you lower than anyone else. Historians still argue whether the intense, sometimes rote nature of imperial education truly fostered intellectual curiosity and critical thinking, or if it primarily produced scholars steeped in tradition but ill-equipped to handle the rapidly changing complexities of a vast empire. Whatever its ultimate impact, as you dutifully copy another 1,000 characters or recite a lengthy passage from the Analects, you feel the immense weight of centuries of knowledge being poured into you, preparing you for the singular, sometimes overwhelming, destiny that awaits. From the rigorous discipline of your imperial studies, let's turn to the ultimate test of your education and character, the daunting task of ruling. This leads us to the fine, often blurred, line between benevolent dictators or tyrants. You see, as the Son of Heaven, you wielded absolute power, capable of enacting sweeping reforms or unleashing devastating cruelty with a single stroke of your brush. The nature of your rule depended almost entirely on your personal disposition and the influences around you. Imagine sitting on the dragon throne, receiving petitions from your ministers. One might propose a grand irrigation project to feed millions, promising prosperity. Another might suggest a harsh new tax to fund your lavish personal expenses, or a brutal suppression of a minor rebellion. The choice is yours and yours alone. There is no parliament to debate, No independent judiciary to challenge your decrees, no opposing party to hold you accountable. Your word is law. Your whim can become destiny. It's like being the ultimate benevolent dictator or the ultimate tyrant, depending on which side of your bed you woke up on. Your Majesty's wisdom guides us all, for good or ill. A trembling minister might declare, barely daring to breathe. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese emperors possessed absolute executive, legislative, and judicial power. While Confucian ideology emphasized benevolent rule and the welfare of the people, the practical application of this power varied wildly, leading to periods of peace and prosperity under wise emperors and eras of immense suffering under cruel or incompetent ones. A benevolent emperor might dedicate himself to public works, ensuring granaries were full, roads were maintained, and justice was fairly administered. He would listen to his ministers, encourage honest criticism within limits, and strive to embody the Confucian ideal of a virtuous ruler. His reign would be marked by stability and growth, perhaps leading to a golden age. You might find yourself working long hours, poring over documents, genuinely striving for the good of your people, feeling the immense satisfaction of a prosperous realm. However, absolute power, as they say, corrupts absolutely. A tyrannical emperor might succumb to paranoia, trusting only sycophants and cruel eunuchs. He might indulge in lavish excesses, squandering the empire's wealth on personal pleasure while his people starved. He might impose brutal punishments, silence dissent with bloodshed, and unleash arbitrary terror. You might find yourself growing increasingly isolated, suspicious of everyone, turning to opium or strange elixirs, losing touch with the reality beyond the palace walls. The line between being a divinely appointed leader and a feared despot was incredibly thin, and many emperors stumbled across it. A quirky tidbit is the concept of avoiding naming taboos, where characters in an emperor's name became forbidden for use by anyone else in the empire, leading to countless bureaucratic headaches and forced name changes for ordinary citizens. This minor quirk perfectly illustrates the absolute and sometimes absurd extent of imperial power. Historians still argue whether the system of absolute monarchy inherently fostered tyranny, or if the individual character of each emperor was the primary determinant of whether their rule leaned towards benevolence or despotism. Whatever the truth, as you make another momentous decision, you feel the profound impact of your singular will, capable of shaping the destiny of millions, for better or for worse. Having navigated the moral tightrope of imperial power, let's turn to a more personal side of your reign: leisure games and entertainments. You see, even as the Son of Heaven, burdened by the mandate of heaven and the weight of an empire, you couldn't be all work and no play. Emperors, like all humans, needed diversion, though their pastimes were often as peculiar and extravagant as their lives. Imagine an afternoon where the formal ceremonies are over and the ministers have departed. You might retire to a secluded pavilion in your imperial gardens, not for meditation, but for a spirited game of Go-Hane-Wegi. This ancient strategy board game, with its complex patterns and subtle tactics, was a favorite among scholars and emperors alike. You would sit across from a trusted eunuch or a favored concubine, moving the black and white stones with quiet concentration, finding a mental challenge that offered a welcome escape from the political chess of court life. A good game of Go, Your Majesty, sharpens the mind, even if it leads to inevitable defeat for your humble servant. A tactful opponent might concede. Mainstream historical fact confirms that board games like Go and Zhangqi Chinese chess were popular forms of intellectual entertainment among the Chinese elite, including emperors. These games provided mental stimulation and a refined way to pass leisure time. Beyond intellectual pursuits, your entertainments could range from the refined to the delightfully bizarre. You might attend an elaborate opera performance in a dedicated palace theater, witnessing colorful costumes, acrobatic feats, and soaring vocalizations that told tales of ancient heroes and mythical beasts. Or perhaps you'd prefer a more intimate performance by talented musicians and dancers in your private chambers. You were, after all, the ultimate patron of the arts. But then there were the truly quirky diversions. Remember our discussion of imperial pets. Some emperors were obsessed with cricket fighting, spending hours watching these tiny gladiators battle in ornate cages, placing bets and celebrating their champions. Others might organize elaborate bird-catching expeditions within the palace grounds, or engage in kite flying with enormous, intricately designed kites that soared high above the Forbidden City. It's like having an unlimited budget for the world's most niche hobbies. You might even discover a fondness for elaborate mechanical toys, wind-up figures, or intricate automata brought to you by Jesuit missionaries eager to gain imperial favor. A quirky tidbit that exemplifies imperial eccentricity: some emperors were known to stage elaborate puppet shows for their own amusement, sometimes featuring political satires or caricatures of their own ministers, a safe way to vent frustrations without causing actual diplomatic incidents. Historians still argue whether these imperial entertainments served primarily as a necessary psychological release for the emperor, or if they were also a form of soft power, showcasing imperial wealth and cultural sophistication to visitors. Whatever their deeper purpose, as you watch a puppet dance or listen to the delicate plucking of a pipa, you find a fleeting moment of pure, unadulterated enjoyment, a brief respite from the ever-present pressures of the dragon throne. From the refined pleasures and quirky pastimes of imperial leisure, let's turn to a realm where your absolute power and vast resources intersected with sometimes alarming beliefs: strange medical practices. You see, despite being the son of heaven, you were still susceptible to illness, and the methods employed to keep you healthy or to cure your ailments could range from the deeply traditional to the utterly bizarre, often with questionable efficacy. Imagine yourself afflicted with a common cold, or perhaps a more serious ailment that brings genuine discomfort. Your imperial physicians, typically well-versed in traditional Chinese medicine, would be summoned immediately. They would meticulously observe your pulse, examine your tongue, and inquire about your bodily functions, all part of a comprehensive diagnostic process. You might be prescribed elaborate herbal concoctions, brewed for hours from rare ingredients, their pungent aromas filling your chambers. These might involve ginseng, deer antler, or countless other exotic flora and fauna, each chosen for its specific energetic properties according to ancient texts. A proper decoction, Your Majesty, balances the Sera way and banishes the chill. A venerable imperial physician might intone, his eyes earnest. Mainstream historical fact confirms that traditional Chinese medicine, with its emphasis on balancing yin and yang qi and the five elements, was the dominant medical system in imperial China. Emperors had access to the best physicians and the rarest ingredients, reflecting the advanced state of this medical knowledge. However, alongside these more mainstream practices, superstition and desperate attempts at cures often led to truly strange remedies. Remember our discussion of seeking immortality. That obsession often led emperors to consume highly toxic, mercury-based elixirs, convinced they would grant eternal life, only to suffer severe poisoning. This was a dark, dangerous side of imperial medicine, driven by a fear of death that transcended rational thought. You might be offered a pill made from powdered jade, or perhaps even the feces of a mythical beast, all promised to cure you of your ills. It's like having every snake oil salesman in the empire competing for your royal patronage. You'd probably long for a simple headache powder. A quirky tidbit is the practice of imperial pulse-taking, where physicians were sometimes not allowed to directly touch the emperor's skin. Instead, a silken thread would be tied to the emperor's wrist, and the physician would take the pulse by holding the other end of the thread, a bizarre ritual designed to preserve imperial purity and dignity. Imagine diagnosing a complex illness through a piece of string. Historians still argue whether the emperor's immense power and isolation made them more susceptible to charlatans and dangerous cures, or if the pursuit of exotic remedies was simply a natural extension of their ability to command vast resources for any desire, including life eternal. Whatever the truth, as you swallow another bitter herbal brew, or perhaps shudder at the thought of a mercury pill, you are participating in a medical history where absolute authority met profound human vulnerability. Having explored the often bizarre attempts to preserve imperial health during life, let's turn to an equally extravagant and ultimately inescapable aspect of your imperial existence: imperial funerals, grand exit. You see, death for an emperor was not a quiet, private affair. It was the ultimate transition, a meticulously planned, often posthumous, performance of power designed to ensure your smooth journey to the afterlife and the continued prosperity of your dynasty. Imagine the moment of your passing, or rather, the passing of an emperor. Even in death, protocol reigns supreme. The news would be carefully managed, often concealed for days or weeks to prevent immediate power struggles or unrest. Your body would be meticulously prepared, perhaps bathed in fragrant herbs and dressed in your finest robes, symbolizing your eternal majesty. The air would thicken with incense, and solemn rituals would begin, designed to guide your spirit on its celestial journey. The dragon ascends to heaven, your majesty, and the empire prepares for eternal reverence, a chief eunuch might intone, his voice heavy with performative grief. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese imperial funerals were among the most elaborate and expensive rituals in history. They involve vast numbers of participants, immense wealth, and detailed ceremonies stretching over months or even years, reflecting the belief in a continued existence in the afterlife and the importance of ancestor worship. The centerpiece of your grand exit would be your tomb. This was no mere grave. It was an underground palace, a miniature replica of your earthly court, designed to house you and ensure your comfort and prestige in the spirit world. You would have begun commissioning its construction, sometimes decades in advance, a peculiar hobby for a living emperor. These tombs were filled with astonishing treasures: gold, jade, silk, precious ceramics, and often replicas of your entire imperial retinue from terracotta armies. Remember Qin Shi Huang to bronze chariots and countless servants, all designed to accompany you into eternity. It's like planning the ultimate, incredibly elaborate, and very, very expensive retirement home. Only you don't get to enjoy it. You might even chuckle at the thought of the sheer number of archaeologists who would one day be utterly thrilled by your posthumous extravagance. A quirky tidbit is the practice of human sacrifice in earlier dynasties, where concubines, servants, and even trusted eunuchs might be buried alive with the emperor to continue serving him in the afterlife. While largely phased out by later dynasties in favor of effigies or terracotta figures, the concept underscores the literal belief in a continuation of imperial life beyond death. Historians still argue whether the immense resources poured into imperial funerals and tomb construction genuinely reflected a profound religious belief in the afterlife, or if it was primarily a political strategy to legitimize the new emperor and consolidate power by demonstrating the wealth and continuity of the dynastic line. Whatever the deeper motivation, as you, the deceased emperor, embark on your final journey, you are doing so with a grandeur and theatricality that only the Son of Heaven could command. A truly grand exit for an extraordinary life. Having witnessed the monumental preparations for your posthumous glory, let's now consider a persistent, often irritating, but ultimately vital aspect of your imperial reign: the censorate's sharp tongue. You see, while you held absolute power, you were not entirely unchecked. A unique institution existed specifically to scrutinize your actions and those of your ministers, offering criticism and warnings, often at great personal risk to themselves. Imagine yourself on the dragon throne, perhaps feeling quite pleased with a recent decree or appointment. Suddenly, a figure steps forward, usually a lone, unsmiling official from the censorate. He bows deeply, perhaps 3 times, but his voice, though respectful, is firm, unyielding. He proceeds to enumerate your supposed failings, a policy that displeased the people, a ritual improperly performed, an official appointed for personal favor rather than merit, or even your own excessive indulgence in concubines or exotic pets. This isn't a suggestion, it's a direct, formal critique, a challenge to your imperial wisdom, delivered with a bravery bordering on suicidal. Your Majesty, your humble servant presumes to speak frankly for the good of the empire, though it may cost him his head, a censor might declare, his voice echoing in the vast hall. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the censorate was a powerful supervisory agency in imperial China, tasked with monitoring officials at all levels of government, including the emperor himself. Censors had the right to directly remonstrate with the emperor, offering advice or criticism, and their independence was considered crucial for good governance. Although many faced punishment for displeasing the emperor, the boldness of these censors was legendary. They understood the immense personal risk involved. Displeasing the emperor could mean demotion, exile, torture, or even execution for themselves and their families. Yet many censors embraced their duty with unwavering conviction, believing their moral obligation to the empire outweighed any personal danger. They were the empire's conscience, the official nagging voice that you simply couldn't ignore, even if you desperately wanted to. It's like having a permanent, highly articulate, and utterly fearless internal auditor who only ever points out your mistakes. You might secretly wish for a mute button. A quirky tidbit is that some particularly cunning emperors would occasionally feign anger at a censor's criticism, even ordering a public whipping or brief imprisonment, only to privately reward the censor later, recognizing the value of honest feedback while maintaining an image of imperial authority. Historians still argue whether the censorate was genuinely effective at curbing imperial excesses, or if its power waxed and waned significantly, depending on the strength and disposition of individual emperors. Whatever its true impact, as you listen to a censor's scathing, yet meticulously reasoned critique, you feel the weight of their words, a stark reminder that even the Son of Heaven was subject to scrutiny, and that eternal vigilance was the price of true power. Beyond the external scrutiny of the censorate, your imperial life was governed by an even more intimate, sometimes absurd, set of rules. Naming taboos and power. You see, the very name of an emperor was imbued with such immense power and sanctity that it became forbidden for others to use, leading to widespread linguistic gymnastics and endless bureaucratic headaches across the vast empire. Imagine, for a moment, that your personal name, the one your mother whispered to you as a child, suddenly becomes unspeakable. If your name, or even a single character from it, appeared in a common word, a place name, or the name of a person, that word, place, or person's name would have to be changed. This was known as a naming taboo or avoidance taboo, and it applied not only to your personal given name, but often to the names of your ancestors and even significant characters in classical texts. One simply cannot risk uttering the sacred character of your Majesty's birth name. Dear, it would be blasphemy, a trembling scribe might explain, frantically erasing a forbidden character. Mainstream historical fact confirms that naming taboos were a long-standing and significant practice in imperial China, intended to show reverence for the emperor and imperial ancestors. Violating these taboos, even accidentally, could lead to severe punishment. Consider the practical implications of this. If a commonly used character in your name was Ming, meaning bright, then countless everyday words, historical figures, and even personal names across the empire that contain Ming would have to be altered. Rivers might be renamed, historical texts recopied with substitute characters, and ordinary citizens forced to change their own names to avoid accidentally offending imperial sensibilities. This created an enormous administrative burden and linguistic confusion, often frustrating scholars and commoners alike. It's like playing a perpetual game of forbidden word, but the consequences for losing are rather more severe than just a funny forfeit. You might secretly delight in the chaos your name caused, a subtle demonstration of your pervasive power. A quirky tidbit that highlights the absurdity during the reign of Emperor Kangxi of the Qing dynasty, whose personal name was Xuanye. The character Xuan Xuan, meaning profound or mysterious, became taboo. This character was extremely common in classical texts and philosophical writings, leading to countless instances where scribes had to find awkward substitutions, sometimes even leaving a blank space, simply to avoid uttering the forbidden sound. Historians still argue whether the extreme enforcement of naming taboos was primarily a genuine expression of imperial reverence, or if it was also a subtle means of social control, constantly reminding the populace of the emperor's omnipresent authority. Whatever the precise motivation, as you hear a minister stumble over a phrase, choosing a convoluted synonym just to avoid uttering a character from your name, you feel the pervasive, often inconvenient, power of your imperial identity, shaping the very language of your empire. Beyond the linguistic gymnastics of naming taboos, let's now slip into the truly hidden side of your imperial existence. The palace's hidden passages. You see, the vast, intricate labyrinth of the Forbidden City wasn't just a collection of grand halls and courtyards. It was riddled with secret routes, concealed chambers, and covert tunnels, designed for security, escape, and sometimes for intrigue that even you, the emperor, might not fully grasp. Imagine a moment of crisis, perhaps a sudden rebellion or an assassination attempt. While your grand processions emphasized your public presence, your survival often depended on these unseen arteries of the palace. You might be whisked away by trusted eunuchs through a discreetly hidden door, disguised as part of a wall or a decorative screen. These passages, often narrow and dimly lit, would lead to secret courtyards, secure residences, or even, in some extreme cases, to tunnels beneath the city walls, offering a clandestine escape route. It's like living in a massive, constantly shifting escape room, but one where the stakes are your life and dynasty. His Majesty has merely retired for contemplation. Dear, nothing to see here. A palace guard might blandly state, as you are spirited away through a hidden door behind a mural. Mainstream historical fact confirms that many imperial palaces and residences across various Chinese dynasties incorporated secret passages, hidden rooms, and emergency escape routes. These were vital for imperial security, particularly during periods of political instability, coups, or rebellions. These hidden passages weren't just for emergencies. They also facilitated the discreet movements of eunuchs, concubines, spies, allowing them to traverse the vast palace complex without being observed or to gain access to areas normally restricted. A powerful eunuch might use a hidden route to reach your private chambers undetected, delivering sensitive information or conducting covert operations. A concubine might slip through a secret door to visit a forbidden part of the garden, or perhaps, in rarer cases, to meet a secret lover. These passages were the palace's nervous system, pulsating with unseen life and silent machinations. You might walk past a seemingly solid wall every day, completely unaware that a secret door lay concealed within it. A quirky tidbit that underscores their mystique: some hidden passages were designed with elaborate mechanisms, like revolving walls or disguised bookshelves, making them virtually undetectable to the untrained eye. There are even legends of hidden wells or underground storage rooms accessible only through these secret routes, containing emergency supplies or hidden treasures. Historians still argue whether the extreme secrecy surrounding these hidden passages contributed to imperial paranoia and isolation, or if they were a necessary and pragmatic response to the constant threats of assassination and internal power struggles within the palace. Whatever their primary purpose, as you navigate the overt grandeur of your imperial palace, you feel the subtle presence of its hidden arteries, a silent, complex web of secrecy and survival that continually reminds you of the profound layers beneath the gilded surface. Beyond the hidden passages and personal eccentricities, a significant portion of your imperial life was consumed by a beast of an entirely different nature: bureaucracy's endless maze. You see, Governing an empire as vast and ancient as China required an administrative machine of staggering complexity, a labyrinth of paperwork, protocols, and countless officials that could either efficiently manage millions or utterly drown you in minutia. Imagine your study, not always a serene space for contemplation, but often piled high with scrolls and documents, every decree you issued, every tax collected, every official appointed or dismissed, every canal project, every military campaign, generated reams of paperwork. There were detailed reports from every province, petitions from countless citizens, official correspondence, and intricate records stretching back centuries. You had hundreds of thousands of officials, from the highest-ranking ministers in your court down to the humblest scribes in remote villages, all generating, transmitting, and processing this ocean of information. Your Majesty, another hundredweight of memorials from the Ministry of Rights awaits your divine perusal. A weary eunuch might announce, gesturing to a literal mountain of scrolls. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Imperial China developed one of the most sophisticated and enduring bureaucratic systems in world history, relying heavily on a meritocratic civil service examination system to select officials. This vast administrative apparatus was essential for governing such a large and populous empire. The sheer volume of documents was overwhelming. You, as emperor, were theoretically supposed to review every major document, appending your imperial seal or offering personal comments. This could mean reading hundreds of pages a day, dissecting intricate arguments, and making decisions that affected millions of lives. The weight of the empire wasn't just on your mind, it was literally in the piles of paper surrounding you. It's like being the CEO of the world's oldest, largest, and most paper-intensive corporation. With no digital shortcuts, you might secretly long for a shredder, but that's several centuries away. A quirky tidbit is that some emperors, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of paperwork, would develop intricate systems to prioritize documents, or delegate vast amounts of reading to trusted grand secretaries or eunuchs, sometimes signing off on summaries without fully grasping the underlying details. This delegation, while practical, also created opportunities for manipulation by those who controlled the flow of information. Historians still argue whether the complexity and size of the imperial bureaucracy ultimately fostered stability and efficient governance through meritocracy, or if it became too unwieldy, prone to corruption, and resistant to necessary reform. Whatever its long-term impact, as you dip your brush into the ink and prepare to endorse yet another weighty document, you feel the endless churn of the bureaucratic machine, a necessary but often exhausting part of wielding the mandate of heaven. From the endless scrolls of bureaucracy, let's turn to a force that often overshadowed even your grandest decrees: superstition's deep roots. You see, despite the empire's sophisticated philosophy and administrative prowess, the lives of emperors, and indeed the entire populace, were profoundly influenced by omens, astrology, folk beliefs, and a deep-seated fear of displeasing unseen spiritual forces. Your decisions were not just rational, they were often guided by ancient fears and hopeful auguries. Imagine a sudden, unexpected event, a comet streaking across the night sky, a rare animal born with unusual markings, or a perfectly healthy tree inexplicably dying in the imperial gardens. To you, the emperor, and to your court, these were not mere coincidences. They were omens, portents from heaven, carrying messages about your rule, your dynasty's future, or impending disaster. Your astrologers, diviners, and geomancers would be summoned immediately, their faces grave as they consulted ancient texts and performed intricate calculations to interpret the celestial signs. The heavens speak, Your Majesty, and they say, well, they say something is coming. A cautious astrologer might stammer, trying to find the least offensive interpretation. Mainstream historical fact confirms that astrology, geomancy, feng shui, and various forms of divination played a significant role in Chinese imperial decision-making across most dynasties. Emperors frequently consulted diviners before embarking on major projects, military campaigns, or even personal events like marriages. This permeated every aspect of your life. The construction of new palaces or tombs had to be perfectly aligned with feng shui principles to ensure auspicious energy flow. Important events, like coronations or major sacrificial rites, had to be timed to the most propitious days, as determined by intricate astrological charts. Even something as simple as moving furniture in your private chambers might require consulting a geomancer to ensure you weren't disrupting the flow of calm. It's like having a team of spiritual advisors for literally every single decision. No matter how minor, you'd probably long for the simplicity of just flipping a coin. A quirky tidbit that highlights this pervasive belief: some emperors, when ill, would consult with spiritual healers who performed exorcisms or elaborate rituals to drive out evil spirits believed to be causing the sickness, sometimes in conjunction with traditional herbal medicine. Historians still argue whether the emperor's reliance on superstition was a genuine reflection of their personal belief, or if it was a calculated political move to maintain legitimacy and control over a populace deeply steeped in such beliefs. Whatever the precise motivation, as you await the interpretation of a strange omen, or approve a building plan based on its auspicious alignment, you feel the profound, pervasive influence of superstition, a deep current flowing beneath the grand surface of imperial power. From the arcane interpretations of omens and the deep currents of superstition, let's now turn to a more tangible, yet equally powerful aspect of your imperial influence: imperial patronage of arts. You see, as the Son of Heaven, your word was not just law, it was also the ultimate arbiter of taste, the grandest patron of culture, capable of fostering magnificent artistic flourishing, or, conversely, stifling creative expression through your personal whims. Imagine walking through a bustling imperial workshop where hundreds of artisans toil under your direct patronage. Here, master potters meticulously craft exquisite porcelain vases, their delicate brushstrokes bringing intricate designs to life. In another section, renowned painters create vast landscape scrolls or detailed portraiture, capturing the beauty of the empire or the gravitas of your imperial ancestors. Calligraphers, poets, musicians all flock to your court, eager for your favor, for a commission that could secure their reputation and livelihood. Your patronage isn't just financial, it's a profound validation, a stamp of approval that elevates art to its highest form. Only through the emperor's divine eye, your majesty, can true beauty be recognized and nurtured. A fawning artist might declare, bowing low. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese emperors were significant patrons of the arts throughout history. Imperial courts commissioned vast quantities of art, supported artisans, established academies, and often collected masterpieces, profoundly shaping the direction and development of Chinese artistic traditions. However, your patronage came with a double-edged sword. While you could foster unparalleled creativity, your personal taste could also dictate what was considered acceptable art, sometimes leading to the suppression of styles or themes you deemed inappropriate or unharmonious. Artists might find themselves forced to conform to imperial preferences, abandoning their own innovations in favor of works that would gain your favor. It's like being the world's most powerful art critic, but one whose reviews could determine an artist's entire career, or even their freedom. You might quietly commission a controversial work for your private enjoyment, but publicly, you would uphold the approved imperial aesthetic. A quirky tidbit is that some emperors were known to participate directly in the artistic process, sometimes even adding their own brushstrokes to a master painting or composing poetry on the spot during a gathering of scholars. Though the quality of their amateur contributions was, naturally, never openly criticized. Imagine the pressure on the court artist to incorporate your less-than-stellar additions seamlessly. Historians still argue whether imperial patronage ultimately led to a golden age of artistic achievement by providing stability and resources, or if it inadvertently stifled true artistic innovation by imposing strict aesthetic and thematic controls. Whatever its complex impact, as you gaze upon a newly completed masterpiece commissioned by your hand, or listen to a poem composed in your honor, you feel the profound connection between your power and the vibrant tapestry of your empire's cultural life. From the elegant brushstrokes of imperial patronage, let's venture into a realm where the emperor's identity intertwined with ancient beliefs about the natural world. The emperor's spirit animals. You see, the Son of Heaven wasn't just a ruler of men. He was often considered to have a mystical connection to certain creatures, particularly mythical beasts, which symbolized his power, benevolence, and cosmic role. Imagine yourself draped in your imperial robes, adorned with embroidered symbols that aren't just decorative. The most prominent and indeed central spirit animal associated with you is the dragon. Im. This isn't a mere lizard. It's a benevolent, powerful creature of the heavens, associated with water, rain, fertility, and imperial authority. Its five-clawed form is reserved exclusively for your use, appearing on your robes, your throne, your palanquins, and every corner of the palace. You are, in essence, the living embodiment of the dragon, the source of its cosmic power. The dragon's breath brings forth the spring, your majesty, just as your wisdom nourishes the empire. A courtier might flatter, bowing deeply before your dragon-adorned throne. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the dragon was the most important symbol of the Chinese emperor, representing imperial power, wisdom, and good fortune. The five-clawed dragon was exclusively reserved for the emperor, and its depiction was meticulously regulated across all imperial objects. Beyond the majestic dragon, other mythical creatures also held significant imperial meaning. The phoenix, a symbol of high virtue, grace, and rebirth, was often associated with the empress, but its presence alongside the dragon symbolized a harmonious and prosperous reign. You might find exquisite carvings of phoenixes paired with dragons in your private chambers, representing the balanced power of the imperial couple. Then there's the wakilin, or Kylin, a mythical chimerical creature often described as a Chinese unicorn, symbolizing good omen, prosperity, and the arrival of a sagely ruler. Its appearance was believed to herald a golden age, and you, the benevolent emperor, might wish for its presence as a sign of your righteous rule. It's like having a personal mythological menagerie, each creature reinforcing your divine right. You'd never have a simple house cat, would you? Unless, of course, it was a very special cat that you believed embodied the spirit of a lesser deity. A quirky tidbit that demonstrates this unique connection: some emperors were said to have dreamt of dragons or other auspicious beasts before their birth or ascension to the throne, these dreams serving as divine omens of their destined imperial rule. These stories, whether true or fabricated, cemented their mystical link to these spirit animals in the popular imagination. Historians still argue whether the elaborate symbolism of these spirit animals truly inspired benevolent rule by reminding emperors of their cosmic duties, or if it primarily served as a powerful propaganda tool to legitimize and glorify imperial authority, instilling awe and obedience in the populace. Whatever the deeper purpose, as you gaze upon the intricate dragon embroidery on your robes, or consider the mythical beasts depicted in your palace art, you feel the profound, mystical connection to these powerful symbols, a constant reminder of your unique place as the Son of Heaven, intimately linked to the very forces of the cosmos. From the mystical symbolism of your spirit animals, let's descend into a much more earthly, yet equally perilous realm than concerns for succession. You see, despite your divine mandate and absolute power, the continuity of your dynasty rested on a single, often fragile, thread: the secure appointment and survival of a suitable heir. This created intense pressures, dangerous intrigues, and a constant undercurrent of anxiety within the palace. Imagine yourself in your later years, perhaps contemplating your mortality more frequently. The question of who will inherit the dragon throne becomes paramount. Ideally, your eldest son by the empress would be the designated crown prince, a clear and straightforward path. But historical reality was rarely so simple. What if the empress produced no sons, or only daughters? What if your eldest son was sickly, incompetent, or worse, rebellious? What if a younger, more capable son by a favored concubine captured your affection and attention? These dilemmas fueled a relentless, often brutal, competition. The dragon has many cubs, your majesty, but only one can truly inherit the roar. A scheming courtier might subtly suggest, eyeing a rival prince. Mainstream historical fact confirms that succession crises were a recurring and often destabilizing feature of Chinese imperial history. The lack of a clear, universally accepted primogeniture rule, combined with the multiple sons by various concubines, frequently led to fierce competition, assassinations, and civil wars over the throne. The intrigue surrounding the succession was a deadly game. Concubines would scheme to promote their own sons, bribing eunuchs, slandering rivals, and sometimes even resorting to poison or black magic to eliminate contenders. Ministers would align themselves with different factions, hoping to secure their own power and influence in the next reign. Even you, the emperor, might find yourself manipulated, swayed by affection or suspicion, constantly weighing the strengths and weaknesses of your sons. Knowing that your choice could determine the fate of the empire, it's like a royal reality TV show, but with much higher stakes and no voting off the island. Just the occasional, unfortunate accident. A quirky tidbit that reveals the lengths to which some went in some dynasties. The designated heir was sometimes secluded in a special eastern palace, heavily guarded but also isolated, to protect him from assassination attempts by rival factions or jealous siblings. Imagine being the chosen heir, but living under constant surveillance, knowing your life was a perpetual target. Historians still argue whether the system of polygamy and multiple concubines, while ensuring heirs, ultimately destabilized dynasties by fostering intense succession struggles, or if it was a necessary evil to guarantee the imperial line's continuation in an era of high infant mortality. Whatever the ultimate consequence, as you observe your sons or listen to the whispered praises and criticisms of their tutors, you feel the intense, often dangerous, pressure of the succession, a relentless countdown to the ultimate transfer of power. From the treacherous currents of succession, let's now consider a truly rare and often politically fraught phenomenon in your imperial history. Abdication and retirement. Quirky, you see, while the mandate of heaven implied a lifelong rule, a handful of emperors, for a variety of complex reasons, chose to voluntarily step down from the dragon throne, a decision that often sent shockwaves through the imperial court. Imagine the immense weight of empire, years, perhaps decades, of constant ritual, political intrigue, military campaigns, and the relentless burden of governance. For a few, the pressures simply became too great. An emperor might be genuinely weary, longing for a quieter life of scholarship, art, or religious devotion, a life free from the endless demands of the throne. This desire for peace, for personal solace, could lead to the unthinkable relinquishing ultimate power. The dragon, your majesty, may choose to rest its claws, but the roar remains. A trusted advisor might gently persuade, acknowledging the unprecedented nature of such a request. Mainstream historical fact confirms that while rare, there were instances of Chinese emperors abdicating their thrones. These were often complex events, sometimes genuinely voluntary, but sometimes subtly coerced due to illness, old age, political weakness, or pressure from powerful factions. However, abdication was rarely simple. Even if genuinely desired, it often had profound political implications. The successor, usually a son, would ascend to the throne, but the abdicated emperor, now often given the title of retired emperor, Noahana Taisheng Huang, could still exert significant influence. This often led to a peculiar dual power dynamic, where the new emperor struggled to assert his authority, while his father, the retired emperor, still commanded immense prestige and loyalty from certain factions. This could lead to awkward court protocols, conflicting directives, and simmering tensions, like having two suns in the sky, each vying for brilliance. You might even find yourself, as the newly installed emperor, constantly deferring to your still-living predecessor, a truly unique form of retirement. A quirky tidbit is that some retired emperors, once free from daily governance, indulged even more deeply in their personal passions, whether it was collecting art, pursuing alchemy, or cultivating gardens, sometimes to the annoyance of the reigning emperor who had to fund these extravagances. Historians still argue whether imperial abdication was a genuine act of personal renunciation of power, or if it was often a strategic maneuver by emperors to consolidate their chosen successor's power while still retaining a behind-the-scenes influence, or even to escape responsibility for a failing reign. Whatever the true motivation, the act of an emperor voluntarily stepping down was a seismic event, a fascinating deviation from the expected lifelong rule, and a testament to the complex interplay of power, duty, and personal desire in imperial China. From the rare instances of imperial abdication, let's cast our gaze beyond the Middle Kingdom's borders and explore a fascinating, often delicate aspect of your imperial duties. Foreign relations and tributes. You see, as the Son of Heaven, your authority theoretically extended to all under heaven, meaning all surrounding kingdoms were, in your eyes, vassals. This shaped a unique system of diplomacy, largely centered around the concept of tributary missions. Imagine envoys arriving at your court, not as equals, but as supplicants. Representatives from Korea, Vietnam, various Central Asian states, and sometimes even distant Japan would journey for months, sometimes years, to reach your capital. They would bring elaborate gifts, exotic animals, rare spices, local crafts, which were presented to you as tribute. This wasn't just gift-giving, it was a symbolic act of submission, an acknowledgement of your supreme authority as the Son of Heaven. In return, you would bestow even grander gifts upon them, demonstrating your immense generosity and superior wealth. The barbarians bring their humble offerings, your majesty, and you in your infinite benevolence. Bless them with your superior gifts, a ceremonial minister might explain, barely concealing his disdain for the foreign delegates. Mainstream historical fact confirms that the Chinese tributary system was the primary framework for Imperial China's foreign relations for much of its history. It was a hierarchical system where surrounding states acknowledged China's superior status in exchange for trade benefits, military protection, and cultural influence. This system, while seemingly one-sided, often masked complex diplomatic dances. The tribute brought by foreign envoys was often less valuable than the gifts they received in return, making the system economically beneficial for the tributary states. It was a highly ritualized exchange that allowed foreign rulers to maintain their internal sovereignty while outwardly acknowledging China's cultural and political supremacy. You might find yourself hosting elaborate banquets for these envoys, observing their customs, and occasionally being presented with truly bizarre gifts. Perhaps a strange animal you'd never seen before, or a peculiar contraption from a faraway land. It's like running the world's most elaborate and very polite protection racket, only everyone mostly benefits. A quirky tidbit is that some tributary missions included acrobats, musicians, or even exotic performers, providing unique entertainment for the imperial court and a break from the usual solemnity. Imagine a group of Central Asian strongmen performing feats of strength for your amusement during a state dinner. Historians still argue whether the tributary system was a genuinely peaceful and mutually beneficial form of international relations, or if it was primarily a cultural and political construct designed by China to reinforce its own self-perception as the benevolent center of the world, masking underlying power imbalances and occasional military coercion. Whatever its true nature, as you receive a bowing envoy and graciously accept their tribute, you are performing a timeless ritual of imperial power, subtly reminding the world of your cosmic dominion extending your influence not through conquest, but through ritual and gifts. From the intricate dances of foreign relations, let's now reflect on the sum total of your imperial existence, your legacy, good or bad, and bizarre. You see, unlike ordinary mortals, an emperor's life wasn't just lived, it was meticulously recorded, scrutinized, and ultimately judged by history, leaving behind a complex tapestry of achievements, follies, and peculiar eccentricities that shaped the destiny of an entire civilization. Imagine future generations poring over historical annals, dissecting your reign. Will you be remembered as a wise and benevolent ruler, a sage emperor who brought peace and prosperity, initiated grand public works, and fostered a golden age of culture? Or will you be condemned as a tyrant, a debauched wastrel who squandered the empire's wealth, neglected his duties, and brought suffering upon his people? The judgment of history is often harsh, and few emperors escaped its critical gaze entirely. The ink of the historian, Your Majesty, is darker than any dragon's blood. A cautious grand historian might muse, knowing his words would outlive even your dynasty. Mainstream historical fact confirms that Chinese historiography was incredibly detailed and systematic, with official dynastic histories meticulously recording the reigns of emperors, their policies, and significant events. These histories often presented moral judgments, categorizing emperors as wise or foolish, benevolent or tyrannical. Your legacy would be defined by your actions, but also by the narrative crafted by those who came after you, often influenced by the political needs of the succeeding dynasty. A new dynasty might deliberately paint its predecessor as corrupt or incompetent to legitimize its own overthrow. So, even in death, your reputation could be subject to political manipulation. Beyond the broad strokes of good or bad governance, your legacy would also include the truly bizarre aspects of your life. Will future scholars chuckle at your obsession with cricket fighting? Will they puzzle over your relentless pursuit of toxic immortality elixirs? Will they marvel at the sheer opulence of your tomb, filled with a terracotta army, or question the logic of constantly changing place names to avoid your imperial taboo? These quirks, these personal eccentricities, often provide the most vivid glimpses into the human being beneath the imperial robes. It's like leaving behind a colossal, magnificent, but sometimes bewildering, personal diary for all of history to read. You might secretly hope they focus on your poetry rather than your mercury consumption. A quirky tidbit that showcases the bizarre side of imperial legacy: some emperors developed highly unusual eating habits or personal rituals that were meticulously recorded by court chroniclers, becoming odd footnotes in their reigns, sometimes influencing later emperors or just providing amusing anecdotes. Historians still argue whether the comprehensive nature of Chinese imperial historiography truly provided an objective account of each emperor's reign, or if it was inherently biased, serving as a moralistic tool to guide future rulers and justify dynastic change. Whatever the balance, as you contemplate your eventual place in the annals of history, you know that your life, in all its grandeur, cruelty, and magnificent strangeness, will leave an indelible mark, a complex and enduring legacy for the millennia to come. As the grand tapestry of your imperial life unfurls and then gently folds, you are left with the pervasive, almost whispered sensation of the emperor's lasting echo. This isn't a booming declaration from the throne, nor the clamor of a battlefield. It's the subtle, enduring presence of these unique, often quirky lives rippling through the vast expanse of Chinese history, shaping its culture, its governance, and its very identity long after your mortal reign has ended. Imagine the subtle scent of ancient incense, not just in a palace, but carried on the wind through centuries, reminding you of the rituals performed for cosmic harmony. You might hear the faint, distant echo of a eunuch's whispered counsel, a reminder of the intricate power dynamics that persisted through dynasties, or perhaps the quiet rustle of silk robes, symbolizing the pervasive symbolism woven into every aspect of imperial life. These aren't just memories. They are the ingrained patterns, the inherited traditions, and the deeply rooted philosophies that continue to define the essence of Chinese imperial rule. The very landscape of China itself bears your mark. The Great Wall, begun by your predecessors and maintained by your successors, stands as a colossal testament to imperial ambition and defense. The Grand Canal, a marvel of engineering, still flows, a vital artery of commerce and communication, reflecting your focus on public works. Even the bureaucratic system, with its emphasis on meritocracy and detailed record-keeping, continues to influence governance, a direct legacy of the administrative mazes you once navigated. Your presence, therefore, isn't just in dusty annals, it's in the very stones of the empire, the flow of its rivers, and the organization of its people, the art you patronized, the calligraphy you admired, the ceramics you collected. These forms and traditions continue to inspire. Your idiosyncratic preferences, your obsessions, your follies, even your tragic mistakes, all contribute to the rich, multifaceted narrative of China's imperial past, offering lessons, warnings, and endless fascination for those who come after. It's a vast, continuous symphony, and your reign, however brief or long, was a crucial movement within it. As the imagery softly fades and the whispers of history become a calming hum, you feel the profound connection to this ancient world. The weight of the dragon throne, the intrigue of the harem, the wisdom of the classics, the folly of immortality, and the grandeur of the processions. All these elements coalesce into a single, resonant echo. It's a reminder that even the most powerful and peculiar lives eventually become part of the collective memory, shaping the present and informing the future. Let this grand, yet strangely comforting, echo envelop you now, a gentle lullaby from centuries past. The journey through the quirky lives of ancient Chinese emperors is complete, and their lasting resonance now drifts softly through your consciousness. Sweet dreams.